1395, Adelaide's FIVEaa. This is Richard Pascoe.
At 20 to 3 on this Saturday afternoon. Thank you for joining me. Please give me a call, 8223 0000 on anything. If you disagree with me, give me a call.
I've got to share this one because it is a ripper of a story, and it's just unexpected because, you'll hear that we are pushed as the wine state, and we drive past and possibly some of us take some of our little wineries for granted without, we enjoy their wine, but there's a backstory in all of them. In fact, there's a fringe show waiting to be made about the one I want to put a focus on now. It's a little winery called Eight at the Gate Wines, based down in Raton Bully. Do you know where that is?
No idea.
It's just above Coonawarra, down in the southeast.
Right.
So they've got the same Terra Rossa soil down there, but they're just a little bit higher up, and two sisters, Jane and Claire, Jane Richards, they run this little winery. Now,
a big cheerio to Jane and Claire if you're listening.
Oh, fantastic.
Why don't you just call your neighbourhood the Coonawarra? You don't have to go along and reinvent names.
You've got a knack, haven't you? You've just got this knack. Now, this story, though, stretches from the southeast to America, involving Wolf of Wall Street, and then back to a current Stan TV show, all around this little winery.
You've got me intrigued, Steve.
Well, I met them. I used to run some social media workshops down in Coonawarra and got to meet Jane and Claire. And as you know, Richard, I'm always on the lookout for good South Australian drops for my podcast, Adelaide show.
Yes. And
not every wine person takes the bite, but these two did, and I got to try some of their wine. We bonded at that moment. Anyway, this story is about Jane, because she grew up in Bordertown, went off to uni, studied IT, so she's like a female version of Richard Pascoe.
That's good.
But then, in the late 90s, she moved to New York with her husband, who was working for a Fortune 500 company, and this is culture shock territory. This little country girl from SA started living that life. I've seen pictures. They had a huge mansion. There were Ferraris in the driveway. We're talking furniture that is more expensive than you and I could ever imagine. Nannies, glitz, glamour, everything you could imagine. And Jane's kids went to school with Jordan Belford's kids. And, of course, as people would know, Jordan Belford is the Wolf of Wall Street. So does that give you the idea of the sort of life she was in? Absolutely. She was in magazines. She was known by all the different reporters that cover that sort of thing. Life ticking along very nicely. But as you'd know, 90s, that's what we call the dot-com boom.
Yes.
And there was a crash on its way, and just before the crash, 3 people at the business that her husband worked at got paid huge bonuses, and I mean huge. He wasn't one of them, but 3 of them were. Anyway, the SEC starts doing some investigations over there, the Securities Commission, and they need heads. Heads have to roll for this. And the people who got the bonuses were all at board level, too big, too powerful. And so Jane's husband was pushed off the edge, got arrested, got charged, and got sentenced to 7 years jail.
Oh.
And here's the thing, if that's not bad enough, because he was a Kiwi, like any foreigner, they get sent to one of the toughest prisons, because that's where they send people while they wait to kick them out of the country. But this is the beautiful thing about the US legal system, he says, ironically.
I was going to say.
There wasn't room in the jails. So he had to be sentenced to 7 years and then lived at home for another 6 months while they waited for a space. And so he got sent to this jail, which had 2 20-foot barbed wire fences. It had gangs like you wouldn't believe in there. Anyway, he's doing that. Now, here's a stroke of luck in this story. While they were starting to have kids, Jane had bought the vineyard at Rattenbury with her sister Claire, because they wanted the idea of turning it into a family wine concern at some point. And so when the crash came, when they lost all their assets, Jane moved back to Australia. And this is where the 8 at the Gate label gets its name. Jane had 4 kids. Claire had 4 kids. And there they were. Every morning there were 8 kids sitting along the farm gate waiting for the school bus to come, which is where this story, got its, where the winery got its name for. And bad things happen in threes. The next thing that went bad, their first season, frosted out. We're talking 2006, 2007, everything gone. Lost to frost. And then the third thing is that they're on their feet, they're building up their reputation, and then China decides that it doesn't like Australia much anymore, and the huge tariffs go up, and all of the work they put in just went down the gurgler, because it wasn't just their own wines. They provide wine to many of those big labels you see. Anyway.
Steve, you mean China doesn't like us anymore? You could knock me over with a feather.
Yeah, it came at a bit of a shock, didn't it?
Yes.
So there's all the bad ends, but now we've got a happy ending. And this is the time when many people are binge watching. I don't know if you watch many romantic shows, Richard. You strike me as the person who loves a good romance soap opera. Am I right?
No Time to Die. I'm just trying to think of, there was romance in that.
It's true. Well,
Spider-Man. So yes. No.
Have you heard of, on Stan at the moment, there's a show called Wolf Like Me.
Yes, I have.
Yep, so it's quite popular. It's actually based in Adelaide. It's being shot in Sydney, but the story's set in Adelaide. And this is what happens in the very first episode. Isla Fisher's character meets Josh Gad's character in a restaurant, and she brings over a bottle of Eight at the Gate Cabernet Shiraz. And she bangs it down. They have a ripper of a red. It's their Cabernet Shiraz. And it's just one of those things where the roller coaster life that Jane's had is now on that up, and we get a chance to drink this wine as well, perhaps whilst binging on this show. So there's another hidden story from behind the scenes of yet another little South Aussie business for you.
I mean, that's last week we had the story of the AFL player who ended up being a punting coach and a kicking coach. I mean, that's a great story for down there from the, what's the district called again?
Which down at Rattenbully. Yes.
Rattenbully, exactly right.
Yes.
So, yes.
Yeah.
Coonawarra is easier to say, girls, let me tell you. So, yes. You're in marketing, well, Steve. Just Rattenbully, no. Coonawarra, done.
Well, who knows? If there are more TV shows that start having Eight at the Gate in it, they don't even have to call a region anymore. They don't. Eight at the Gate. Because I think it's great that a New South Wales production company sought out a South Australian wine to be the flagship wine on a show. If anything says the rest of Australia secretly knows we make the best wine, even though they don't admit it, there's some proof.
No, I think that's
at the moment.
It's a great thing. And can you go down to the winery, Steve?
They don't have it set up like that because they mainly sell out and about. Every now and then, Rattenbully, they pull together, they have these big wine tasting events. Right. So you typically find it in bottle shops, and their website, of course, with all, like all the rest, you sign up, you become one of their members, and you get it a little bit cheaper, which is interesting because Isla Fisher's character says, as she slams the wine down, have this, it's expensive. And, of course, it's not. Thank you. It's about $30 a bottle, but you get it a little bit cheaper on their website. So what do you do? It's nice to have the TV fame. And I think, not that we're counting, but Jane said it was like 4 minutes and 20 seconds that it's on screen for. So there you go.
Nothing wrong with that. The reason I mentioned about if you can go down, because wouldn't it be good for 8 of you to go down and sit on the gate and get your photo taken? Now,
there's an idea. I love it. I wonder what the waiting is and whether we can socially distance while on the gate. It's a pretty big gate. I've driven through the gate
when
it was open.
Yep.
I'll hasten to add. Not like that bloke down south that you were talking about just before. Look, there's something. I'm sure Jane's listening, so she'll probably thank you, Richard, and you can sit on her lap on the gate.
Very good. That's what I like, Steve. Steve, thank you very much. I mean, that's another fascinating story. If I'm back next week, can you find me another one?
There are heaps where that came from. Through this mentoring I'm doing, I'm meeting all sorts of people, and you get to spend time and dig out these stories. So name an industry, I'll know someone, and we'll dig out some dirt. All
right, then. That sounds very good. I was going to give you an exotic industry then, Steve, but I won't put you on the spot on the radio, all right?
There is a story there, but it's from the Northern Territory.
Thanks, Steve.